Thank you. Shabbat shalom. We need some ruach, right? We need a little energy because it's been a hard week. In fact, it's been a number of hard weeks, right? It's these last couple of weeks have been extremely painful for so many of us. Our hearts, I know, are already hurting for Israel and for all of those who are suffering there and in Gaza. We know anti-Zionist rhetoric is at what feels like an all-time high. And if that were not enough, that anti-Semitism that so often seems to live at the edge of anti-Israel sentiment has morphed into full-blown anti-Jewish hatred. When hashtag Hitler was right trends alongside hashtag Free Palestine, the link between anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment is undeniable. Attacks on Jewish Americans, Jews anywhere, simply because we are Jewish, are on a sharp rise. And we need to be aware, and we need to speak up. For so long, we have contended with Jew hatred on the far right, with those who chant blood and soil, with those who see us as genetically other and lower, with those who cling to conspiracy theories about control of the media and banks and even space that we might laugh at if it weren't so ridiculous, right? We might laugh at it if it didn't enthrall and catch the imagination so of those who would prefer that we simply not exist. But friends, we have to understand that white supremacists don't have the market cornered on anti-Semitism. We must also contend with anti-Semitism on the far left, and sometimes not even that far left. And I want to name that I know that this is uncomfortable, that this feels like betrayal to some of us. While to white nationalists way on the far right, Jews are not and will never be white, hence their hatred. For those on the left, Jews too neatly fit into the uber progressive narrative as white oppressors. To be sure, we are influenced here by what is around us, by the systemic racism right here in the United States. But before we use that frame to examine Israel-Palestine, let us pause. When we look out at the world and expect to find mirrors of our own American experience in every world conflict, let us remind ourselves that that reflects more on us than on those in the world around us. Let us check our America-centrist attitudes. To be clear, we can and we should support Palestinian human rights, and I call for a Palestinian state to be established alongside the state of Israel. But that shouldn't even have to be stated for the world to understand that there is no excuse, no justification for anti-Semitic assaults on Jews across the globe. No excuse for Jews to be sought out and physically attacked on the streets of LA and New York and beyond. No excuse for verbal attacks and online rants that compare Jews to Nazis. No excuse for a Jewish preschool in San Francisco to be spray painted with the words, "Death to Israel." Criticism of Israel alone is not anti-Semitic. I'll say that again. Criticism of Israel alone is not anti-Semitic. We must be ready to hear criticism, and I have my own share of criticisms of the state. However, it is anti-Semitic to consider all Jews responsible for Israel. And it is anti-Semitic to deny Israel its very right to exist. Like you, perhaps, I too have been asking about these assaults and attacks. I've been asking, where is the outrage? Where are those standing up next to their Jewish siblings against hate? It is undeniably painful to look around and see the absence of so many of our friends who show up for others against discrimination, yet are withholding the same awareness and support for Jews when the target is on our backs. We have noticed the silence. We have noticed the lack of allyship. When assaulters chanting Free Palestine ask people, Are they Jewish before striking them like they did in LA? That is anti-Semitism, plain and simple. And I want more people to scream about it from the top of their lungs. And because we can't do this alone. We must speak up, and we must put it simply to our friends and to our co-workers and to all those in our circles and let them know. If you have spoken up for racial justice, if you have spoken up against anti-Black and anti-Asian bigotry, you must speak up now against anti-Jewish hatred too. And we must also let them know, if you spoke out against Israel recently and you chose specifically not to speak out against Hamas, who specifically targeted Israeli citizens and celebrated their deaths, then we must bravely say, your discrimination is showing. We must stand up against anti-Semitism from wherever it comes, from the right and from the left, even when it comes from those with whom we proudly stand in so many other social justice arenas. Because if we do not speak up for ourselves, friends, then who will? Let us remember Hillel's famous dictum, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? We must call upon our local, state, and national officials and our friends and our neighbors and those in our interfaith community and beyond to say, enough is enough. We might not all agree on Israel, but let us agree on this, that there is never a justification for anti-Semitism. We too, as Jews and as all of those who count ourselves among the Jewish community, we deserve to be safe. It feels uncomfortable, yes, to point these out to those around us, but if I am not for myself, then who will be for me? Last night, I was heartened to see a statement put out by the Interfaith Council for Contra Costa County, which I will share here. As people of this is their statement, as people of every faith, tradition, and life philosophy, we call for an end to the violence against the American Jewish community. We recognize that Jew hatred has deep roots in our society, including that it is a base theology of white nationalism and white supremacy, and that the rhetoric of politicians and others has led to an increase in violence. There is no excuse for acts of violence against anyone because of their race, creed, color, political party, or stance. Let's be part of the solution rather than their problem. We are indeed grateful. We're grateful for that statement from the Interfaith Council. We're grateful for our partners there, and we look forward to working on that solution with them together. So where's the nechemta in all of this? The words of comfort and the words of hope. I wish, frankly, that I had more to give. I had more comfort, more words of hope to give. The truth is that this is a moment about opening our eyes. This is a moment about getting comfortable in our authentic selves and standing up and using our voices to demand an end to anti-Semitism on all sides. We must not back down. We must not be intimidated. This is a moment of hope, for I am hopeful about us. We are not alone. We have one another, and there are brave souls out there ready to use their voices to stand up for us. And we need to let them know now is the moment when we need them. We need to be brave too, and we will do this together. For if not now, then when?